3, 2, 1.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Hey guys, welcome back to another week of our podcast. I'm Chef Rich Rosendale, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Christopher Ryloff and Rachel Barnett. And this week, we had a really interesting guest. For those of you that are, and of course we always have interesting guests, but this week, if you're really into restaurants and kind of curious about the future of restaurants, what does that look like? You're definitely going to want to listen to this episode. Our guest was Michael Farid. He is the CEO and co-founder of Spyce Restaurant. Spyce Restaurant is a fully automated robotic kitchen. It is a fast casual concept that Michael, along with three other entrepreneurs that were MIT grads, they were all students and specialized in engineering and robotics, literally built a prototype of the robot that they now use in the restaurant in their dorm. So it was really an incredible story about how this all got started. And of course, they decided to go and get some culinary chops behind the project, and they teamed up with Chef Daniel Boulud. So really interesting conversation, very insightful about what the future may look like with technology really making its way into all aspects of our life. But this was specific to restaurants. So it was really interesting to hear Michael's thoughts on that. And also just hearing about how COVID in 2020 has impacted their company. And also I want to say a special thank you to Vitamix Commercial. They are the sponsor for today's episode, and they're huge supporters of everything that we do. So please check out their entire line of products. I mean, they really make possible us being able to do the show. We're excited. We're getting ready to open up the Residence Club. We've got three beautiful types of blenders we're putting in there. The XL for large batches of soups and sauces. The Vita Prep 3 is just chops through all of our prep. And then, of course, the quiet one, we're using that for our smoothies because the blender has a sound enclosure around it. So you can make blend smoothies and all sorts of purees very quietly, so it doesn't disrupt any of your guest experiences. So please check out their website. Okay, well, without further ado, let's dig in with Michael Farid.
So Michael, a lot of different places that we could start, but I think when I first saw the trailer commercial for the concept, I was really kind of blown away. But it kind of made me start thinking. A lot of people, whenever they're in school and early on in their career, they always have these kind of grand ideas, and this to me seemed like an over the top idea. That I'm just kind of curious as to how you guys really kind of came up with even doing this concept. Was it kind of the intent? Was it kind of inspired by innovation, or was there somebody on your team that was really kind of a foodie that wanted to be kind of a restaurateur? What was kind of the origins of even deciding to launch this thing?
I think it was a combination of things. I don't think it's a coincidence that the four of us that started Spyce are all foodies. We were the guys on the water polo team that would pick the restaurant that we wanted to eat at after the game. We were the ones that gossiped about what new restaurant we thought would come into the student center. We bonded over food. We cooked in the fraternity basement together sometimes.
Wow.
We sometimes gave our fraternity chef some tips. We were into it. That was our thing. We were frustrated that we didn't have a place that we could eat really good healthy food after a water polo practice. We had our student center, but we just felt like that wasn't food that we wanted to be eating. And we had to kind of go off campus and venture out and spend more money to find the food that we did want to be eating. And we kind of became interested in this idea of making healthy food more accessible. And as college students, we didn't feel like it was accessible. And we learned a lot about, what the constraints are, what the challenges are. We learned a lot about the restaurant industry, and, being mechanical engineers and studying robotics, we felt like maybe there's a way this problem can be addressed and improved using automation. And so that's kind of where the idea was born. At no point were we super interested in trying to sell automation. We were always super interested in trying to serve food to people and trying to make it accessible. And we felt like automation could possibly have a really big role to play in that. We saw that automation had a big role to play in making, like general commerce more accessible, like e-commerce warehouses. And we said, why can't we apply that to food as well? And frankly, automation has a big role in making food accessible in things like frozen pizza and microwave meals and that kind of thing. And so we kind of saw, we felt like there was, we felt like the restaurant industry has seen innovation over the past few decades, starting with McDonald's and then Subway and then Chipotle. Like these are all brands that totally changed what it means to operate a restaurant. And we felt like with automation, there was another step that we could take in that direction. And so, that's kind of where Spyce was born. And, luckily we had a ton of resources, being at MIT. Like we definitely couldn't have done this on our own. And we had a ton of really great mentors and a lot of people to help encourage us along the way. But yeah, that's kind of where it was born.
Right. Well, and obviously you guys being at MIT, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of chefs and people across the country that maybe they're in culinary school where it's one thing to have the idea, but what you're talking about was really kind of a revolutionary concept that you really kind of had to have more, not necessarily just the aspect of culinary chops, to really have a good menu, but you're talking about like really kind of introducing a completely different model. So I think the MIT component was really kind of critical in this really kind of becoming a reality. I'm kind of curious because one of the things, we've had all kinds of people on the show, some restaurateurs, we've had people from wineries, and 2020 has really impacted people in so many different ways. It kind of made me think that maybe there might be aspects about your model that might have been maybe more COVID proof, I guess, if you will. Has the contactless aspect, has that been something that has played a role in being able to kind of navigate through all the challenges with the whole pandemic situation? How has that impacted your operations this year?
Well, so I guess, first and foremost, we only reopened and relaunched our concept just a couple weeks ago, and so this is new for us too.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. In the beginning of the pandemic, I think there was a lot of uncertainty as to how COVID is transmitted from person to person. I mean, I remember in the beginning, like we were sanitizing our groceries. And, now it's become pretty clear that COVID is transmitted through the air and that actually you can't get COVID through food. And so I think it's kind of just worth noting that, in the sense that you can't go to a restaurant and get COVID because of something that you ate. And so that puts restaurants at a level playing field. Now, of course, we've definitely rethought. I mean, we put a window in the front of the store so that people that don't want to walk in don't have to. Of course, we have the app, we have delivery, we have contactless delivery. These are all things that all restaurants are trying to do. Any restaurant that has the opportunity to put a window in has done that. Right. And any restaurant that has the opportunity to make the customer interaction as quick and seamless as possible has also done that. And so, those are all definitely things that we're thinking about and working on. But, we're going through the same challenge of, in one of our locations in Downtown Crossing, our primary business was offices, and obviously offices are not there. And so we've also faced the challenge of trying to reach customers at home through delivery, through pickup, even trying to do catering to hospitals. We've looked to other sales channels to make up for the office business.
And where are all those locations today? Where do you operate at?
Today, we only operate in Downtown Crossing in Boston, but in early January, we'll be launching in Harvard Square as well.
Okay.
Do you have plans to launch outside of Boston?
We totally do, and we totally would love to. But right now, we're in the phase of trying to refine our model, hone it in, build a brand that consumers are really, really excited about. And so we're, as much as we have big ambitions to launch outside of Boston, we're not there yet.
We're excited for you to launch down here in Florida whenever you decide the time is right.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we deliver on electric mopeds, And one of the challenges is weather. And I keep on thinking to myself, like, wow, couldn't we have started this in a warmer climate where we don't have to worry about snow and ice?
Yeah,
And so, yeah, Florida would be great for that.
for sure.
We're here
So
to
you-
test.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we will definitely be your test dummies. When you guys launched, and still, I guess to this day, what sort of feedback did you guys receive? I mean, and has that feedback shifted through COVID? Like, how are the customers responding?
You know, when we first opened in 2018, we were really worried about this whole, like, I don't want to eat food that's prepared by a machine idea. And our biggest relief going into it was people didn't feel that way. They were really excited about what we built.
It's great.
They felt that it was transparent and upfront as opposed to something like a black box in the back.
Right.
And they actually loved the experience. It kind of turned into, you know, I never would have imagined that people would come in just to see it, you know. And we had a ton of that. Now, that's not really the point. Like, we're not an amusement park. We're not like a museum. You know, the point is to serve people healthy food, really convenient. But that was like probably our biggest relief, kind of coming out of it. Some of the things we learned was, you know, throughput is really important. The first version of our technology could only do about 120 bowls per hour. And so the wait time at lunch got up pretty high. Like, people would wait 15, 20 minutes. And they obviously didn't like that. We learned that stemming from that, we couldn't launch an app because that would just slow down the in-store ordering experience or the in-store receiving experience. We learned that the technology that we built wasn't flexible enough to serve every single person's needs. And so we wanted to expand that. And that's what we've done with the V2 concept. And then we learned like granular things like, the way we were cooking was really dependent on adding the sauce during the cooking process. But when you deliver food, you want the sauce to be on the side. And so we've learned so many small things like that kind of helped us build the new technology and the new concept, which we're really excited about.
It's so cool.
And you know, it's interesting too, Michael, because all the different people that we talk to, especially like this year through the pandemic and hearing how people have adjusted, we learn so much from everybody that we talk to. And it actually is interesting to hear you say about you're still trying to figure out how to refine your model. I mean, even at your level, with the level of like sophistication with all what's actually going on, like with the mechanics and the robotic automation aspect of it, that you're still talking about that there's opportunity for refinement. So I think that that's something that a lot of business owners around the country can kind of can apply to their own operations, that you never really stop trying to make the model better and the product better. But
it's also worth noting, you know, we're a new brand.
Right.
We haven't been around that long.
Right.
We have a new menu. And so, you know, I think that we are still very much in the learning phase. We haven't proven that that we're going to turn into the next national brand. Like we have a ways to go to prove ourselves. And so, you know, there's the automation piece of Spyce, but then there's the spice piece of Spyce. There's the food, the menu, the experience, all of the stuff that we've worked on our digital experience as well. Like, so we're definitely consider ourselves in the learning phase, and I think we'll be learning forever. But it just so happens that we're learning during COVID, which, you know, not great. But
right. Well, and also too, at the end of the day, I mean, I tell everybody that's doing a restaurant, you're always going to get people that are going to kind of come in and try things, but to really get people to come back, it has to be like a craveable, like delicious product, you know, something that is special, you know, that they can't just make in their own home. One of the things, I don't know if this is true or not, but like over the years, I've heard people talking about like robots getting involved in preparing food. And I think I heard somewhere where like one of the hardest parts for a robot to assemble a hamburger was actually putting the pickle on, because none of them are all the same. They're slippery. It's like, you know, corrosion, all sorts of other, you know, interesting things, where the rest of that assembly was not as problematic. But it kind of made me think, as we were getting ready to talk with you, most restaurants have challenges that they deal with in their day-to-day operation. It's like, oh, so-and-so may have called off, or this delivery didn't come in. And though you may have some of those, what are some of the challenges that maybe is unique to your operation? Like, are there certain ingredients that might present a problem? Like maybe, like I said, maybe something's corrosive, or could there be a software glitch, or like, what are some of the things that you guys are like, oh man, I hope this doesn't happen again, because that was really difficult to deal with?
Look, we have our fair share of operations problems too. Like, we sent out a delivery and forgot the customer's drink. That's not solved by our automation. That's like, mistakes happen, and that's okay. And in my opinion, it's more about how you address them, and how close you are to your customers. We might have less of that, but we definitely still have that. And then you asked for an example of problems that we have. That I'll give a really fun example. Before we relaunched with our new technology, we did about a week of just friends and family, where we invited a lot of our friends and family to come in and just give us as much feedback as we could get. And one day someone said, oh, my bowl was missing its tofu. I was like, that's weird. Check the receipt, check the logs. Looks like it should have got its tofu. And I'm like, that's not possible, because the machine put the tofu, or the machine cooked it. So how was it missing its tofu? And then, later in the day, someone else said it was missing chicken thigh. And then the next day, someone said, I ordered a double portion of chicken breast and I didn't get any. And I was like, oh, okay, wait a second. So we went back and looked at the person that ordered the tofu and the person that ordered the chicken thigh. It turns out they also ordered double portions. Fun fact, we had a glitch that if you ordered a double portion, you got none of it.
Wow.
And so that's not fun, right? If somebody orders a double portion and gets none, right? Because they wanted more of the ingredient, not less of it.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that was a software glitch. We fixed it, thankfully. And I think those will continue to come up. But I think as we get more experience and just get more reps under our belt, these types of problems start to go away. And then it just becomes a case of making sure that we've got our operation nailed down. I don't think if you load the wrong ingredient into the wrong vessel, like, that's an operations problem. And of course we have to deal with that. But for the most part, most of these problems they begin to go away with practice.
Right.
Michael, Chris here. Sorry about we're having a storm coming, so that's why the light went out. You were talking about that glitch that you got. How many people you have on site, and do you have a tech on site? Because when you mentioned that, I was like, that was great that you were doing friends and family testing the entire software and process before you open back. But how do you deal with that day to day? And like, if you have one of those situations?
We've actually found from operating our V1 concept that having a tech on site is not as helpful as having a tech off site. And so we don't actually have our technology support team on site. We have them off site. And so often, they're monitoring the logs, or they'll get a note from a customer. So for example, we found out because someone emailed support@spyce.com and said, hey, I don't think I got X and Y. And so at that point, they kind of look into it. Or if the restaurant operations team notices something that they see that's weird, they'll just get on the phone with our tech support team. It's really not that different from calling your POS provider when something is off. And then we basically try to resolve the problem remotely.
That's great. And about the other thing, I was looking at the pictures and everything, and that everything looks great, like Chef said. And like you said, I would go, first of all, just to see how I would spend probably 20 minutes looking at the machines and how they work. And one of my questions was, like, from the beginning is, do you have a dishwasher or anyone working on the back of the house, or is the entire system is fully automated?
We definitely have manual cleaning at the end of each day that we have to do. But we basically, without getting too technical, we don't have anything that's in the temperature danger zone during the day that we don't actually have to.
Great.
We don't do. And then there is for example, our sauce system has an automated cleaning procedure that happens every 4 hours, and we have a different automated cleaning procedure for a different part that happens. And every time the plancha cooks a portion, it cleans itself. And so we have like little tools like that. And then at the end of the day, we spend about an hour and a half cleaning the various bits and pieces.
You do it, like you have people doing it, or is a fully automated system that it does it itself?
The midday processes are totally automated. The end of day, it's a little bit like taking apart your blender and putting it in the dishwasher and then putting it back together. It's similar to that. We take the pieces out, put them in the dishwasher, and then put them back in.
That's great.
So when it's cleaning in the between a day, this was a great question, Chef Chris. Is that how you prevent like cross contamination for people with allergies and stuff like that? Because that was something that I was wondering is with the full automation, how do you protect against, certain allergies?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. So first and foremost, we don't use any common surfaces. So for example, we have a plancha. We say we have a plancha. We actually have 8 separate plancha lane. We call them lanes. Eight separate plancha lanes for 8 separate ingredients. And so the surface that cooks your chicken is different from the surface that cooks your cauliflower or your broccolini or your tofu or your halloumi cheese. And so those never touch each other. So where the tofu goes, for people with a soy allergy, where the halloumi goes for someone with a dairy allergy, is only one spot ever. And so that's actually one of the biggest changes from our first V1 concept was, if you recall, if you've seen our old videos, we used to use this wok, and we toss all the ingredients into the wok, and we use the same wok over and over. And we had 7 woks. And we realized that we couldn't really use any allergens at all in the machine because we're using the same woks. And so we got around that a little bit. Like we had 1 gluten-free wok and 1 vegetarian wok, but that was the extent of it. Like we couldn't introduce, we wanted to do a sauce that had fish oil. We wanted to introduce tofu, for example, and we couldn't do any of that because we were so limited by allergens. And that was one of the reasons we moved to the new system, where we realized that the only thing the food can touch is that particular vessel, that particular cooking unit, and then straight to the bowl. It can't touch anything else. And that was one of the reasons we kind of rethought it.
That's brilliant. And what does the development process look like? Like you talked about V1 and V2, and you said earlier that you guys were doing it in your frat basement kitchen or whatever. But what does the development process look like? Are you guys sitting around a table talking about it, or what does that look like?
We have a lab, which is a fancy way of saying we work in a warehouse. It definitely starts out with what's our vision for the food that we're trying to make, and what's a prototype menu, and then we start with the menu, and then we say, okay, at least in the V2 system, we thought, okay, what's the best way to cook the ramen noodles that we want to have on the menu? What's the best way to cook halloumi? And then we started prototyping and testing out different cooking methods. We realized that for things like grains and pastas, that steaming, and we actually found the hotter the steam, the fluffier the ingredient. And so we developed this process we didn't develop it, it already existed. We used this process called superheated steaming, which is steaming with steam that's actually a lot hotter than normal steam. We tried a bunch of different techniques out for the searing of the proteins and things like halloumi cheese and broccolini. And ultimately we decided the traditional carbon flat top grill, that was the yummiest way to get them. And so then we started working on, those types of tools. And then there's a lot of our chef expresses a desire to use an ingredient like eggplant in the cell. We say, okay, let's see if we can portion eggplant. And then if we can't, we try to figure out a way to do it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, we have the benefit of, we're not trying to automate every restaurant ever. We're just trying to automate Spyce. And so, we have our menu, we have our ingredients, and we really just work on those. But in doing that, I think we ended up building a pretty versatile system.
I think what you just said is really valuable for people, that whenever a chef come out with a new idea, what about we cook this? You don't close your doors and say no, we're not gonna cook that because we don't have the right equipment to do that. What you just said, that you look for ways to make it happen. I think that's great. I gotta
tell you, the culinary team pushes the engineering team so hard.
I'm pretty sure about that.
Oh yeah,
it's
bet.
There's definitely
challenge you for sure.
Yeah. There was once a question of how thick of a sauce could we do? And the response was, something like sour cream is about as thick as we can go. And then the chef comes up with like this like super, super creamy whipped ricotta cheese that's definitely thicker than sour cream. He's like, can you do this? And then the engineers are like, yeah, we can. And then they figure it out.
That's awesome.
Hey, everybody, we're going to get right back to the conversation with Michael, but I wanted to give you an update. We actually just added a new webpage. Go to richrosendale.com and select podcast. There you can find all of our past episodes and links to everywhere that you can find the podcast. Also, our sponsors are on there. A huge thank you to Vitamix. They are big supporters of the show. We couldn't do it without them. So now let's get back to the conversation with Michael Farid.
If you look at like the restaurant industry, it is like one of the most labor intensive of anything that you can do. And I actually, when I see some of the stuff that you guys have been doing, I was like, man, this is great. I mean, this, because I look at it as there's what I would love to be able to, what I wanted to be able to do. My kind of future vision would be to be able to have maybe more higher paying, higher skilled positions on the team where you still have your chef and everything involved, but some of the things that maybe that it's kind of hard to even find staffing for. I mean, it's crazy because if you talk to a lot of restaurant owners and you ask them like, what are some of their biggest challenges? They'll be like, oh, like finding staff and this and that. So I think a lot of stuff you guys, I feel like there's so much runway for the positive impact on the industry. But what I was going to ask you is like, what do you think like the future of restaurants will look like? And like, how fast do you think that some of those changes are going to occur? I mean, do you think that what you guys are doing is kind of a catalyst for, I mean, do you think it'll make its way into a Danielle restaurant or some of the big brands that are out there? And like, how long do you think it'll take to see some of those changes?
I think everything I'm about to say is my own opinion, and I have some conviction in my opinion, but I don't think I necessarily know. But I'll say this. I think there's a time and place for automation when it comes to quick service restaurants because they serve a very specific need. Spyce customers, when they come to Spyce, they're not showing up on like their anniversary or Valentine's Day looking for like a really fun experience like you would get at Danielle. They're usually on the way out from the gym, or they're popping out for a lunch break, or they're getting it delivered right after their run. It's usually it's a different need than entertainment. Like I love Danielle's restaurants because they're so much fun. And I'm not saying Spyce isn't fun, but I think Spyce serves a very practical need in my life where it saves me from having to go grocery shopping. It's something healthy, it's delicious, it's tasty, it's quick, it's convenient, it's affordable. And so I think in that realm, automation has like a really big role to play. I think when it comes to like Michelin star and fancier sit down restaurants, I think it's more about the experience and the handcrafted nature of the food and the creativity of the chef on that particular day. And I can't really see automation playing a piece. It's more art than it is a process. Like, let's remember, like automation of food started out with frozen pizzas, I think. And so I can't see automation making its way into like the fine dining or the sit down restaurant environments, just because like that's a very different need from quick service restaurants. But I do see automation making its way into quick service restaurants. And frankly, in certain ways, it already has, at least in the front of house. Like a lot of restaurants use self-order kiosks, and a lot of restaurants now have apps, or they allow you to order on apps, as well as like some of the high-tech ovens that are manufactured these days really take a lot of the legwork off. I mean, like right. we have a prep oven that cleans itself now, and I don't think that existed a couple of decades ago. And so I think that automation has already found its way into quick service restaurants in certain ways, and I think it will continue to find its way into quick service restaurants. That said, I don't really see us on a path to full automation. I think that's way, way, way away. I think that like even in our restaurant, we still do so much, and employees still have a very, very important role to play. And so I see that being further out if ever. And so yeah, that's kind of the way that I see it going. And I think the progression is going to be slow and steady. I don't think we're going to wake up one day and be like, wow, all of these restaurants got automated somehow. I think it's going to be like kind of like a slow and steady progression. And I think potentially some of the bigger brands with more cash to spend might start to do some of their own R&D,
Right.
but I'm not really sure.
Well, you also kind of answered my next question, which was going to be like, what do you think the impact will be on like the role of a chef? And you I feel like you kind of echoed almost like how I feel about it, where going to an experience at a place like Danielle's, or even like cooking a steak at home, like there's like this primal connection, emotional connection that we as humans have with food. And
Totally.
what you're talking about is really like all those things that maybe they're important, but they're really kind of a different dynamic in the way that we interact with food. It's almost like, hey, I want something delicious, that's a good price, that's healthy. And maybe that might be the stuff that is a different kind of experience than, I mean, without question, it is a different experience than like saying, hey, I'm going to go somewhere for a special occasion, or I want to experience a tasting meal. So I couldn't agree with you more. I feel like it's a great response.
Thanks. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, well, and I think that a lot of chefs out there, I mean, you see a lot of all the things that are happening with technology, and that's like the first thing that they kind of jump to is like, oh man, all this automation and robots. And that was a big reason for wanting to reach out to you, is because I feel like educating the restaurateurs and saying, hey, look, maybe there's aspects of your operation, and maybe it's not a automated hotline, but it might be a better oven or a smarter app for online ordering. And a lot of these things can actually make the quality of the day better for your team, for your customer. So I think that it's a great impact, really.
Michael, sorry. I wanted to, both of you were talking about the chefs and the role of the chef. And I really wanted to, I have the experience and the opportunity to work a couple of times with Chef Daniel. How was your experience working with Chef Daniel, and how did he impacted Spyce? Because I know that I was reading a lot before the podcast about the company, and I love most of the thing behind behind Spyce, why it happened, that you were talking about a little bit earlier, to make something healthier, and a little bit to work out the time with people, that they can go and order something that's gonna come out beautiful and tasty, and it's gonna be fast. But how was the experience with Daniel?
I mean, we owe so much to him. It's a shame, like he hasn't been to Boston since COVID, so we haven't seen him in a little while. But working with Daniel has been unbelievable. I mean, from the day that he responded to my cold email, to when he came to Boston to check it out, to when he let us serve him food from this wooden contraption, he's been really fantastic. And I also think that he gave us the confidence. When he came to Boston, we had barely just started raising money. I think maybe we'd gotten our first check from an investor. It was such early days, and it was still in a phase when we were like, this is either a brilliant idea or we're extremely stupid. And I think the jury's still out on that. But when he came and he saw what we were doing, and having someone with that much culinary credibility say, wow, I love this, and I think this totally is the future of quick service restaurants. Wow. That gave us the confidence to like really keep going. I mean, we were still in college, my co-founder was still in college. I had barely graduated. And so his encouragement alone, I think, meant a lot. But then also his kind of like his guidance on how to hire a chef, how to develop a menu, how to think about a menu, his ideas for the menu. Now, it's not like he was in Boston day to day working with us on the recipes, because he's got a lot of other restaurants. And then also, I mean, frankly, lending his credibility when we went out to fundraise for real. I mean, the fact that he invested, like he put his money behind it, meant a lot. to people that were outside of the culinary world, or investors outside of the culinary world. So that was also immensely helpful for us. Using his platform to publicize Spyce, and making, we were always worried that we would forever be seen as this techie company, and nobody would ever look at us seriously as a food company, as a company that has something culinarily to say. And he's really helped us get past that. And so, Danielle, if you're listening right now, thank you. We definitely owe a lot to him.
That's amazing. And just to add a little bit to that question, I don't know if you're working closely or not, but I was reading around there that also came to the company, Jerome Bocuse, Thomas Keller, and Gavin Kaysen. Is that true?
They're all angel investors and supporters. We don't work closely with anyone.
They're not advisors. Okay.
I would love to do a special bowl on our menu awesome. with every one of them.
Right.
I'll be honest, not being able to travel because of COVID has made things totally difficult.
Right.
But yeah, they're primarily angel investors and supporters, but we're not in contact.
All right.
Question: is there any other chefs out there that you would like to work with in the future and work more closely on the food aspect of it? Are there any other chefs out there that?
We love Ming Tsai, and I've had the chance to. I saw him briefly in Aspen in the Food and Wine Festival 2 years ago, and we were also him and Danielle were filming an episode of Ming's show in Boston, and we got to watch that live. So we've got to say hi. We haven't had a chance to really sit down, and I've invited him to Spyce a couple of times, but I haven't managed to get a bite yet. But we would love to work with Ming Tsai. I think he's super cool. And also we have a very strong mission when it comes to allergies and personalization. Y'all should download the Spyce app. I know you can't order right now because you're on the zip codes, but you should download the Spyce app and check it out. One of the things we're really proud of is the way that we handle allergens and dietary preferences. So before you even see the menu, we ask you what allergies do you have, and if you have any dietary preferences. It can be as detailed or as undetailed as you want. You might just be vegetarian, and that's that. Or you might have a gluten allergy, a soy allergen, and you're trying to eat keto, and you can put that in as well. And then from there, we actually curate the menu for you, so that that anything you're seeing on the menu is safe for you to eat and works for your diet or your preferences. And then you don't have to worry about mistakes or cross-contamination or things like that. And I know that Ming, I know that at least one of his children has a ton of allergies. I know that his restaurant in Boston is extremely allergen friendly. And so, I think we have that in common.
That's awesome.
Well, those are definitely two fun chefs too. I mean, between Ming and Danielle, they've got huge personalities, and they're both a lot of fun to be around, including being incredibly talented.
Totally, absolutely.
The other item, kind of jumping into just like with the menu itself, is there any items on the menu that you would kind of say is like your personal favorite, your personal go-to?
Personal go-to for lunch is the Odyssey salad. It's lemon tahini dressing. I love the marinated eggplant and peppers. I get it with za'atar chicken thigh just because that flavor works super, super well. And then my favorite bowl for dinner is the bungalow, which is our take on an Indian curry. It's got a Madras coconut curry sauce that's served warm, and it has this awesome mix of carrots and raisins, and it's served with freshly roasted cauliflower. And I get that either I go vegetarian or I get it with chicken breast.
Yeah, I was looking at the menu last night, and I was praying that you guys were going to open something in Florida here, because I'm not kidding. My mouth was just watering. What was it called?
That's
the all me?
The all me.
The banh mi without the bun.
Yeah.
That sounds incredible.
It's a very, very popular salad. It might be that's probably maybe our most popular salad. Yeah.
I mean, everything sounded so good.
Michael, is that the new menu? I was going to ask you, how would you describe the new menu curated by Chef Tenor? And is that the one in the website?
That's the one on the website. Yeah, it is created by Chef Tenor. And you asked, how would you describe it? I would describe it as our take on a lot of global cuisines. That's the way we look at it. And at the end of the day, it's healthy. It's mostly vegetables. Like that's like the star of every dish is going to be the vegetables. It's cooked to order and it's super personalized to you.
That's
and so,
amazing.
for example, like your Odyssey salad might be different from my Odyssey salad.
Right. Yeah, of course.
And obviously, over the last couple of years, there's like a huge shift to more, I don't want to say vegetarian, but even just like plant-based, people that are meat eaters, but they want to eat more,
Right.
More plants in their diet. Would you say that trend has kind of influenced the menu evolution since you've gotten open, or did you guys come out right from the beginning, like with a big focus on vegetables and kind of healthier?
We came out right from the beginning with a focus on vegetables. I mean, the only animal-based protein we've ever served is chicken.
Okay.
And we have this unbelievable tofu, this unbelievable portobello mushroom on our menu that I actually like more than the chicken. And we've always had a focus on vegetables. And if we can ever make a sauce totally plant-based without using any dairy or any eggs, we always go that route first. And so we've always believed that eating plants is the future. We believe that food has a role in the sustainability of the planet. I mean, frankly, we believe food delivery has a role in the sustainability of the planet, which is why we use electric mopeds. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely always been an emphasis on vegetables, since that was a little bit of like where we started in the first place.
Yeah, that's what what I was reading, that you started because of that. You wanted healthy meals and something like you just said it. Michael, I have another question about the website. The website at the bottom, I don't remember what's at the bottom. It says catering coming up or something like that.
Yeah.
How is the future of that division? How is going to work? And because it does sound pretty exciting. Is it going to be fully automated, or how it's going to work?
So catering at Spyce is almost an identical menu to the existing menu, except with a couple of modifications as to how the bowl is assembled. So for example, sauces by default mandatory on the side so that it can last a little bit longer. And then I think, a couple of our menu items, like the Big Biang, for example, it's a noodle-based dish. It's got a broth. Doesn't really work for catering because the shelf life is super short. Like if you're not having it within 15 minutes, it doesn't taste as good. And so it's there's some small modifications like that. And then it all comes in individually packaged bowls. So we don't do family style or tray style catering. Each person gets one bowl, and you pick up the bowl. And then we also do like a really good job labeling. If you've seen any photos of our bowls, it has a name and it's got printed with the dietary preferences and some of the ingredients and stuff like that. So we want, even though, maybe when you're getting Spyce catered as not the person who's ordering the catering, but the person who's consuming it, if you have an allergy, we still want you to be sure about which bowl you want to pick based on that. And then, if the office manager or whoever's placing the catering order tells us, oh, there's 4 vegetarians and 3 people who are trying to eat keto and 2 that are tree-nut free, we definitely take that into account when placing the order.
Yeah, I think that the packaging is so important, and I was looking at whenever I was doing research and everything. I think that the packaging, the labels, and every single details that you have in those bowls, they look really, really good. I forgot to ask you something when we were talking about the technology and everything. Do you think that there is positive impact in our economy from automatization?
That's a loaded question, and I think that only time will tell. Now, obviously, I think so, but of course, I would think so, right? Look, I'll say this: I think there's economists that believe that automation actually helps economies thrive, and economists that think that automation drives up unemployment. And I think that debate will continue to go on as it pertains to all types of automation. And I definitely think that, there was definitely a question in our minds. All of us, when we launched Spyce, unemployment was at an all-time low, and restaurants were having a hard time holding on to workers and hiring new workers because the labor market was just so tight. That's not the case right now, in the sense that unemployment is at an all-time high. and the labor market is not nearly as tight, and a lot of people are unemployed. We kind of looked at ourselves and we were like, this doesn't feel as good right now that it did, a year back.
Right.
And the way that we kind of confronted that reality is we decided to hire our own delivery team. Delivery drivers right now are contract employees that aren't employed by any one company, and their earnings are somewhat inconsistent depending on the night or depending on how much the customer tips or whatever. And we decided that it made a lot more sense for us to purchase our own vehicles, provide the W-2 benefits that you get, like unemployment insurance and workers' comp and all those things that you get as a W-2 employee, and actually hire our drivers as employees as opposed to contractors. So look, I guess long story short, I think that regardless of what you believe economically, I think that we all have a responsibility towards making sure our communities grow in the way that we want them to. The way that we looked at that is we want to support our community, especially at this time when there's a lot of people looking for work. And I certainly think that people that work at, I think the companies that are working on automation, I think if they're not already thinking about that, I think they should be. And I think that we all have a place to play this role. The other thing we do is we have a program called FAB, which is Food, Art, and Building, where we basically work with children and young adults to teach them about food, art, and building, in the hopes that we can influence the younger generation to go into things like STEM and get into that kind of thing. Ultimately, I personally believe that automation, at the end of the day, actually improves economic outcomes and doesn't hurt them in the long term. But I certainly still feel like we have a responsibility to our communities in the short term.
Well, and also too, I mean, this topic's probably like a different podcast, because there's so much different debate and everything and opinions that people would have. But I mean, people talk about inflation and deflation, and the reality is, I mean, technology is actually almost kind of like bringing the price down of a lot of things so that people can actually have access to different services, different, I mean, well, think about even like a TV, about when they first came out. And now, I mean, you can go and you can get a pretty nice TV that is like voice activated, and you can go to like any department store in the country, and you can buy like technology that really kind of improves your life, and the prices have been coming down. And I think that if there's any industry that should be open for the opportunity to improve the day-to-day operation, I think restaurants, just from the standpoint of like, well, even the profitability, like how, that's one of the most risky endeavors to kind of get in, is to open up a restaurant. And people work so hard. It's like, it's so labor intensive. So I feel like there's really a lot of great impact that the innovation, the ideas that you guys are really kind of pioneering. I feel like there's so many different aspects of that I think even higher end restaurants can look to improve their operations and pay people more, and hopefully make more money, and to be able to even give a better product to their customer as well. Because how do you give value to your customer? You've got to find it somewhere in your operation. Where are those efficiencies? Where is that? It's hard to do in the old restaurant model.
Totally. And, in that sense, automation in restaurants is no different from automation in agriculture or manufacturing, anything like that. I think it sounds scarier because it's not something that you traditionally see automated, and it's also a little bit more in your face when it's not tucked away in a farm that you never see, for example, or in a manufacturing warehouse or an e-commerce fulfillment center. Like, you don't see that. I think the analogies are consistent across those. And I think the argument you just made is the argument that an economist who believes that automation is ultimately good for the economy would make. And that's the way that I believe it to be too. I do still think, though, that we have a responsibility in the short term to our communities.
Right, to be able to transition. I guess one of the ads I've seen is like disrupt without disruption, is almost kind of a way to transition into this kind of new era of technology, but really making every effort to like not leave anybody behind in that process.
I've never heard that phrase, but I kind of like it.
I think I saw it at an airport in the pre-COVID days when I was traveling.
Oh, gotcha. Thought you came up with it.
Michael, I know we're coming up here on the hour, and I'll open it up. I don't know if Rachel or Christopher, if you have any other final questions for Michael.
Oh, just said, you go, Rachel.
So besides Spyce, what would be your favorite restaurant that you go to?
You have 2 chefs on board. Be careful.
Yeah. Look, my best ever restaurant experience was at Danielle in New York City. That was like number one. But if I had to pick a restaurant in Boston, I would pick Sarma, which is in Somerville. Super, super talented chef, small plates, incredible experience, incredible vibe, incredible food.
Awesome.
Well, Michael, we hope we'll have the opportunity here soon to be able to come up to Boston to experience the restaurant. And thank you very much for your time to be able to share with us your story. I mean, I really, whenever I first saw the whole reel of the restaurant, I thought it was really just inspiring, and also to find out that you weren't chefs and you kind of applied this to an industry that is very intimidating for a lot of people to get into. So I commend you for that. And I love innovators and entrepreneurs, and we're very inspired by everything that you're doing, and love all the things that you had to say today. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, great. You're always welcome. If you're in Northern Virginia, we have a restaurant here. It's not automated. We have a smoker running pretty much like 24 hours a day. So, but you're always welcome anytime you're in the area. Michael, where can people find out more about you and about the restaurant if they want to reach out?
You can find out about the restaurant by just going out to spyce.com. That's Spyce with a Y, SPYCE. Or you can follow us on Instagram. The handle is just Spyce, again, SPYCE. And then if you want, you can follow me on Twitter at Michael S. Farid.
Awesome.
Sounds good. All right, Michael. Well, best wishes for the rest of the year. And again, we hope to see you in Boston soon. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all. Really appreciate it.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode with Michael Farid. And before we finish up today, I just wanted to share with you, for me, bringing somebody onto the show like Michael, it's not just because they have this restaurant of the future and that interests me. It is interesting. And I think it's an indicator of things to come. But I hope that many of you were also inspired. I mean, you have 4 entrepreneurs that had no restaurant experience, that in their mind's eye had something that they could see, a vision that has never existed before. And in their dorm rooms, they created it. So listen, whatever it is, everybody's gone through such a difficult year in 2020. People have lost jobs, they've changed directions, career changes. But listen, there's always going to be things that are going to be challenging and that could be discouraging. But this is a time of tremendous opportunity. You can make a lot of bad decisions and still be okay. You only have to make 1 or 2 good decisions to profoundly change the trajectory of your entire life. So I hope that Michael's story inspired you the way that it inspired us. And before we close today, I want to say thank you to all of our sponsors. Again, Vitamix commercial. Check out their entire line of blenders. Also, Henkelman. Henkelman makes amazing vacuum sealers, but they're also getting ready to launch vacuum sealing bags. And these bags are recyclable. So really cool new product that they're getting ready to launch. Also, Verlasso salmon. We use Verlasso salmon in our restaurants. It is sustainable fish from Chile. It's outstanding buttery texture. Check that out. And also to Comey. Comey is the cutting edge world-class recipe and menu management software. That's what we use in our restaurant and all of our operations. It's really a great product. And also the International Sous Vide Association. They're a great organization. I know they're gearing up for their summit for next year. Hopefully it won't be virtual again like it was this year. but they're a great organization. If you love sous vide cooking and you want to know what is the latest trends, check out the International Sous Vide Association. So until next week, thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe and share this with as many people as you can. We really appreciate all of your support, and have a great week. Thanks for listening.